artists, welcome to your Snowman with Tree painting class. In front of you, you should have your canvas. You should also have a cup of water, a paper towel, a larger and a smaller brush. For your paints, you should have brown, black, and white, a light green, a darker green. Be very careful of those. They're super similar, but a lighter green and a darker green. Also, be sure to have a mustardy yellow color, your dark orange paprika color, and your maroon color. You do not need to pour out your paint. The only time you need to is if you want to mix any colors. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're gonna do is take our two brushes and place them in our cup of water and swirl it nice and round. And if you do not have all those materials just yet, no problem. Just press pause on the video and come back to us whenever you're ready. And when you're done, just tap them onto the paper towel. You never want to go straight from water to painting on your canvas or your paint will drip. So always be sure to wash and then dry your brushes. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to paint our snowman's face white and also the body white, and we'll be using our bigger brush. So big brush, white paint, and I'm gonna outline underneath the scarf. It's okay if you go on top of the pencil line. I'm just kind of working my way more inside of it, because later on I will be outlining it with a black paint. So you can just kind of go in there, outline the shape inside, and then go ahead and go in there and completely fill in all that space. So in a nice white belly area. Make sure it looks nice and flat. You don't have any bumps with your paint. And you can tell that the paint is on there because it's gonna look nice and shiny. If you accidentally get some pencil marks in there, just kind of sweep it up and wipe it off on your paper towel. The next step again is the face area. I'm gonna outline and fill in the face area. So I'll just kind of go on the inside. You can always switch to your small brush if you feel like you can get in there a little bit easier in the smaller areas. But I'm just gonna use my big brush and my white paint. I'll go around the nose area. And then I can go ahead and just fill the whole thing up with white. Again, be sure there's no bumps. It's nice and flat with your paint. You don't wanna paint on in the nose area. So I'm just kind of working around it. Nice and smooth. Again, if you pick up some pencil marks, just sweep it and wipe it off on your paper towel. And once you're done, you do not have to wash and dry your big brush. You'll keep that white on your brush for the next step. Take your time. If you're still working on it, you're welcome to push pause on the video. But the next step we're gonna do is we're gonna paint the background with a little bit of white and a little bit of your lighter green. So I'm gonna go in there with a little bit of white and a little bit of lighter green, both on my brush at the same time. And I'm working in all that background space. Later on, I'll build my tree on top of it. But with those two on my brush, I'm gonna constantly be moving my brush, a lot of times making this X shape. Be very careful of your snowman and don't go over this line, and don't start painting down here where the ground's gonna be. So almost like I'm sweeping kind of like an X shape all over the place. You wanna constantly be moving your brush with the light green and the white. Just kind of sweeping, completely covering up that background area. So light green, white, move that brush. That's gonna create that brushwork feel in the background. If you feel like it got too dark, add more white. If you feel like it got too light, add more of that lighter green. Always going back if I need more. So light green and white. This will take a while. You definitely want to get into all that background space. As I get closer to my snowman, I do kind of outline a little bit around him, and then I can go in there and move my brush a little bit closer, just so I don't get into that space. And if you do, it's okay. You can always white it out with white paint. But I do kind of like creating a line and then going outside of it. More light green, more white. Keep going. And be sure not to be in the same spot over and over again, because you don't want those colors to get blended in too much. You just want to make sure that you see that fast movement of your brush. Now white is a tint. It's going to make your green lighter. So again, if you wanted to go back to more just the green on its own, you can. And there is a space right down here that you want to kind of get into. Space over here on the sides. Making a little line and then just going up just on the outside of it. In just a moment, I'll start painting the sides and the top. You don't want to paint underneath where this ground line folds over, so you can always make yourself a line, and then you can work your way up all the way to the top. Same on the right side, you can just make a line so you know where to stop, because this will all be the ground area later. Then don't forget to paint the top part all in that same kind of X motion. So above that line. If your paint seems really thick on there, you can decide to keep it like that if you like that really thick texture, but it'll definitely take longer to dry. It'll be shiny and wet for a while. But if you feel like you have too much on there and you want to remove it, just take your nice clean brush, just kind of scoop some of it off and wipe off the extra or the excess onto your paper towel. So again, I stopped at the line and I worked my way all the way up to the top of my canvas. Same on this side. I stayed above the ground line. So the left side, add some more green on there. The right side. If I see any white canvas peeking through that background area, just go over it, cover it up. Because you want all that background to be covered except for that line and your snowman. And in just a moment, we will start painting inside of our snowman. We want to avoid any outside area that's still wet. So in just a moment, I will go in there and start adding some detail inside of the snowman area. So I'm going to make sure I got all those spaces. All right, and then once you are done, you can wash and dry your big brush. Make sure everything looks nice and clean. Perfect. And wash and dry. Take your time. Again, if you're still working on this, you can. If you feel like your X's look too choppy, you can go back over it with longer kind of sweeps. So if you feel like your lines are too short, just kind of go back over it with larger brush strokes to get a little bit more soft. But that's absolutely up to you. It's absolutely, take your time. If you got some inside the snowman area, you can always wait for it to dry and just kind of use white paint to white it out. All right, while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm gonna go into the carrot-shaped nose with my small brush and that paprika orange that I have. So it's kind of like that darker orange on your plate. And I'm gonna outline and fill in. I'm actually gonna go over my pencil line just a little bit. And I'm painting up and down like so. So outline and then just kind of paint in an up and down motion. And before I outline that, I definitely want it to be nice and dry. Once you are done, you can wash and dry. Your small brush. If you want to do 2 coats of that paprika orange, you can. You can let it dry after a couple minutes and build that second coat on top. But if you feel like the first coat gives enough coverage to where you don't really see too much of the canvas underneath it, you're welcome just to keep it as 1 coat. The next step is adding some maroon stripes inside the sock area. So once I've washed and dried my small brush, I'm going to go to that really pretty maroon, so that reddish color. I'll leave a little bit of space underneath the belly, and then I'm just going to make lines going side to side. The harder I push, the thicker the line becomes. I'm going to leave a little bit of a white space between each line. Going left to right, a little bit more down here. I'll start kind of curving a little bit as I go down, and then I start going in an up and down motion and just kind of curve with that sock shape. And again, you can do 2 coats of this if you like. Let it dry and go back. Maybe work on the other one, then jump back to this one for the second coat. Same with the one on the right. You do want to kind of line them up. So I'm going to come down a little bit from the belly. Small brush, that maroon paint. Create those stripes. They curve. Make it a little bit more straight, up and down. A little bit more side to side. If it's still shiny, you might want to give it a little bit more time. You can always come back to it later. And once you're done with these stripes, we're going to go into the scarf with the same small brush, the same maroon paint. So with my small brush and the maroon paint, I'm going to outline. I'm going to go over my pencil line. And I'm going to fill in. The scarf does go down. So I'm going to show you once you're done filling in this top part what to do. You're going to come a little bit to the left of this corner right here. And you can make just like a curvy line coming that way, about halfway down. And then you're going to make another line Starting at the top here again, kind of going with the curve of the belly. Coming down that way too. Maybe stops a little bit higher than the other one. Almost has that upside down V shape. And then go ahead and make it a little bit thicker. I'm gonna come in a little bit more too, by pushing down a little bit harder on your brush. I'll let that dry for a couple minutes and I can go back and give it a nice second coat. While I have maroon on my small brush, I can always go back and kind of give other things that are the same color another coat. I feel like I do want to go back later on and give this one another coat. I feel like it's just going to be too wet for a couple minutes, but I can always work on other things while I'm waiting for this to dry. Or you can just wait and come back to it whenever you're ready. Perfect. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to mix a little bit of brown and black, so you definitely need a plate or the wax paper to mix on. And for the brown and black, I'll use it for my tree and for the arms. Again, be very aware of any wet colors mixing that you don't want to. So, small brush, it's washed and dried. I'm going to take 3 scoops of brown, 1, 2, 3 scoops of brown, and a dot of black. So I'm just gonna dip it in there. I'm gonna mix myself a darker brown. I think maybe another little dot of black. And it to be a nice dark brown. Still not getting what I want. Looks a little bit lighter in real life than it does on the video. You want a nice dark chocolate kind of brown. If it gets too dark, go back to your brown. But a little bit of black paint goes a long way. All right, so like a nice chocolatey brown. I'm gonna use my small brush, and I'm just gonna go over this tree line. And if you lost it, no problem. Just make a straight line, about a ruler's width over to the right, a little bit above the scarf, and then come over. The bottom of the tree is a little bit thicker, so with that same brown-black mix, just start up a little bit higher and push down a little bit harder on the left and on the right where it gets a little bit thicker. So just a little bit to the left and just to right. Make sure it smoothly kind of goes into the rest of the tree. The next part is going to be the arms. So the arms start out a little bit lower than the scarf. Again, you're going to have that same brown black on your brush. So a little bit lower than the scarf. I'm going to make a line going all the way to the tree. Slants down just a little bit. And then a little bit lower down, I do want you to make, maybe starting at the point right here, I want you to come down just a little bit at a slant, just a tiny bit, not too much. A little bit of a curve. And then these are going to be kind of like the fingers. You only have one, comes out a little bit higher, and then another one that goes a little bit lower. You don't truly have to go around the tree because the greenery will be on top later. but you just want to kind of give that effect. So I'm going to go a little bit lower down, starting at that point. And right here where it breaks off from the body, I do want to make it a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go up a little bit. I'll go down a little bit. And of course I have the other arm right here. So from the scarf, I'm going to come down and stop about here. I'll make a line that kind of goes diagonal up. And then I'm going to make another line that kind of hits the corner of the hat. A little bit of a curve where the elbow would be. And then one of the branches or the fingers kind of picks up. The other one kind of goes underneath. And it does get a little bit thicker down here where it breaks off of the body area a little bit. Go in a little bit and clean it up. Start from the outside and just kind of brush some in. Get a little bit cleaner line work at the ends. There you go. Like so. And once you're done, this whole ground area is still that same dark brown mix that you made. You can use your small brush. Just gonna go over that pencil line to the left of the feet, in the middle, to the right. Make that line. And again, remember you're curving it over. Be careful if your green and white are still wet. And then you can use your small brush to go underneath the shoe a little bit, or the feet. I'm not really sure it's socks or shoes, so let me go underneath them with my small brush. And then you can jump to your bigger brush to kind of paint all the space underneath it. So I'm just gonna wash and dry my small brush and paint all that ground area a dark brown. And you can make more of a mix, just kind of go back and forth between your brown and your black. It's pretty similar to, or just make it pretty similar to your tree branch. Painting side to side. So big brush, black and brown mix. Go ahead and paint the ground. Don't forget the sides. And then the very bottom as well. Dry. You can give that a second coat if you want. Make it look a little bit more solid. Once you're done, you can wash and dry. So you had your tree, the arms, and the ground all be that same brown and black mix. Now that my scarf is a little bit more dry, I think I'm going to go back in there with my small brush and my maroon paint and give it another coat. Much better. While I wait for paint to dry, a lot of times I do go back and touch things up. Just be very aware of what paint's touching. So if you don't want things to mix, just kind of work around them. Once you are done, you can wash and dry both of your brushes. If you're not done, you're welcome to push pause on the video. But the next thing I'm going to do is paint my snowman's hat black. I'll use my small brush and my black paint. Can be sure it's not dripping off of there. I'll use it to outline the left side, the top part. And then I can use my bigger brush to fill it in. You don't have to clean your small brush because we're gonna keep using our small brush with the black paint. But you can just kind of put it off to the side while you use your big brush to fill in the hat area. So there's the hat. I went to my big brush, my black paint, just a little bit of black paint. I think I'm gonna paint it side to side. I was gonna go up and down, but I'm gonna do side to side. I think it'll kind of give it the feel of the hat kind of curving a little bit more. I would definitely do 2 coats of black for the hat area. So once you're done, if you want to give it a couple minutes to dry, then you can go over it a second time. We'll be working on different areas of the snowman, so you can always go back and once the other areas are filled in. Perfect. Put my big brush aside. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to draw the eyes on my snowman. So small brush, so I'm going to jump back to my small brush and just a little bit of black paint, maybe even tap some off on your paper towel. So this is the top left corner of my carrot-shaped nose. I'm just going to come up a little bit. I'm just going to push down on my brush. It's kind of a rounded oval shape. There you go. Don't start off too big. I always like to start off small and you can get bigger. And about the middle area, I'll make part of the eyes. Be careful not to paint inside of that carrot-shaped nose. And start off small, and again, you can always get bigger. I'm going to outline my carrot-shaped nose now that it's nice and dry. And again, the harder you push, the thicker the line becomes, so just be on the tippy toes of your small brush. I'll wipe some of it off on my paper towel, but I am going to make just like little lines with a little bit of space. Maybe the line's getting smaller and smaller as I work my way up the carrot-shaped nose. So I just wipe some off on my paper towel, and then I made little sweepy lines going almost all the way up. If you don't like the way that looks, let it dry. You can always go back to your orange and build that orange on top. Once I'm done, I can go back to more black. I'm going to outline the left side of the face from one side to the next. I'm going to outline the right side. Don't push too hard on your brush. And I'll make the wiggly smile. So there's a little bit of just a line right here. My brush has been worn a lot, so, or used a lot, so I'm gonna kind of bring the bristles back together again. And I'm gonna make a little bit of a wiggle to my brush, up and down, up and down. And I'm gonna come back up. Not too much of a wiggle, just a couple here and there. And then you can finish the end by just adding a little line. If your scarf is nice and dry, you can go ahead and do this step, or you can wait a little bit longer. But I'm gonna outline the left. I'm gonna go above the scarf. I don't wanna see any white between the scarf and the snowman, so I'm gonna add some black. And then to the left of where the scarf kind of falls, and I'm gonna come down where it falls to the right and work my way to the rest of the scarf. Be very aware of any wet paints again. If the arm is still wet, give it a little bit more time. And there are some fringes on that scarf, so all you have to do is just barely push down just a little bit. Just little short fringes on there. It's kind of sweeping down, flicking my brush just a little. And then I can outline the body shape. I'll start this way. Nice long lines. Maybe have them meet up. Perfect. And then there are 3 swirls for kind of like the button area. If you want to watch me do it, and then you're welcome to start. Again, if you can bring your brush to a point. My brush has had a long day. It's probably gonna get too thick, so later on I can kind of white it out to make it thinner. But they're almost like E's. So I have my first one. I can already tell my brush is a little bit too worn, but I like the letter E. Tilt it a little bit. It doesn't touch from there to there. It's almost reaching from this point to that point. A little bit of black on my brush. A little bit of a space. Barely pushing on that brush. And then a little bit of a space, just kind of stir on the inside. Work my way out, be sure it's not touching the one before it. Kind of like a tilted E. If yours got messy, let it dry and then just kind of go back in with white paint in your small brush and just kind of clean out anything that might have gotten out of order or a little bit messy. So you can always let it dry and clean it up with white paint. Once you are done, you can start outlining this area. I'm going to go around the left side. So I'm just going to go outline where my pencil mark was before. And with my black paint, I'm going to go on top of the maroon a little bit and on the bottom. So I'm using my black to kind of separate where the black end, where the maroon and white kind of meet. So just kind of go over my maroon a little bit. Same to the other one. You want to use your small brush, just a little bit on there. Both sides. Outline the whole thing. And then I can use my black to separate. Bring this down just a little bit. Later on you can go in there with white in those white areas, but if you feel like your canvas looks bright and clean enough, you don't have to. But if you are going to go into those white spaces with white paint, be sure the black is nice and dry. Excellent. Wash my brush. I am going to go back and give my hat a second coat of black. Making sure it's nicely covered. Like so. I go ahead and wash and dry my two brushes, and I'm gonna go off and start working on my tree, and I'll come back to my snowman one more time and add a little bit more detail to the hat once it's a little bit more dry. So wash and dry. Be sure all that black is off of your brushes, so you can really get all the black off. You can even kind of hug your two brushes with your paper towel by wrapping all the way around them. Perfect. Once you're done, you are gonna jump into your darker green and your big brush. And again, if you're still working on this, push pause on the video. But once you're ready, big brush and that darker green you haven't used yet. There's 3 layers of your tree, and they all kind of have that mustache kind of shape where they're going out to the left, to the right. But let me show you how. I'm going to start a little bit higher than my point on the top. So I'll make a little dot so you know exactly where I'm at with that. Actually, let me go a little bit higher than that. Sorry, I'm gonna go just a tiny bit higher than that. And then I'm going to, to the left a little bit, I'm gonna sweep down. And then to the right a little bit, and I'm gonna sweep down. This is all with my dark green and my big brush. Sweep down. So you kind of see that mustache shape. And then I'm gonna kind of follow that shape a little bit, kind of go with it. And it just looks like one big mustache. Let's do the second one. I'm gonna start right underneath it, and I'll sweep down. This is the second section. I'll go over my arm a little bit. You don't want to completely cover up the hand. You still want to see the hand kind of peeking through where the snowman is hugging. But you have your second section. This is with my dark green. Again, that kind of mustachy shape. You see that second mustache is kind of coming down. And then I'm going to start at the top of this one. With my third, and be sure you still have a lot of the bottom area of your tree. You don't want to really go too far down with that. You can cover up the hand just a little bit, but you definitely want to see it poking through. Just gonna go in there. Be sure that you have your 3 sections that are showing. In a moment, we will go in there with our light green and our white, but I do definitely want to have 2 coats of this darker green. So once I gave it a couple minutes, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it since we're videoing, but give yours a couple minutes and then you can go back and give these kind of 3 sections 2 coats of the dark green. I'm just kind of flicking out section 2. Still see the hand kind of peeking through. There's that. And after a couple minutes, you don't have to clean your brush. You can just kind of jump into that light green. Maybe pat some off on your paper towel so you don't have too much on there. So straight from the darker green, I just jumped into my lighter green. tapped it on my paper towel so I didn't even wash it. And I'm just gonna go on top of it and add some more sweeps. And again, I would do 2 coats of this so you get a little bit better coverage, or maybe even 3. It's kind of sweeping down in that mustache shape. Curling up a little bit. And then without cleaning my brush, I did jump into a little bit of white, tap some off on my paper towel. So tiny bits of sweeps, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 sweeps in there. And then you can just kind of go over it and smooth it out. If you got too much white on there, just let it dry. And then you can go back over it with your other greens. So again, give that some time to dry. If you want it to look more solid, definitely give it more time to dry, and you can go back between the light, dark, and then your white to cover it up. But you can go back and forth between those 3 as much as you need. And then once you are done, you can wash and dry your big brush. And if you're still working on that, you're welcome to pause the video. I do feel like this part did get a little bit too thick, so I can just wipe some off while it's still wet. And now that I look at it, I kind of want that to be maybe a little bit whited out. Sorry, I pick at my paintings. So I feel like that part got a little bit too thick. So if there's a section that got too thick, you can just white it out and then go back to your white and light green that we kind of started off with before. Just kind of work that in there a little bit more. So if you feel like one of the sections got a little bit too thick, let it dry for a little bit and then go back to your white and light green and just kind of make those fast movements with your brush. I think I'm gonna build some more. There you go. It's a good way to kind of fix that problem. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to add a star on top of our tree. And I'm gonna use my small brush and my mustardy yellow paint. So small brush, mustardy yellow paint. And for the star shape, you wanna of course come up a little bit higher than the top and create an upside down V shape where you want the very top of your tree to be. And then you can always go out to the right and to the left. And then you're gonna come in, and then you'll go back out and back out, and you'll just kind of make those into a V shape. And again, go in there and clean that up just a little bit. Make sure the ends of those are pretty pointy. So I made my V, upside down V shape. I went to the right, I went to the left, came down, nice points at the end. And then you can go in there with your small brush and fill it in. If it got too big, that's totally fine because we're gonna go in there with our white paint and just kind of bring some of the line work in. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. And again, 2 coats, maybe even 3 coats of your yellow. While I'm waiting for my yellow to dry, I can use the back of my small brush. So the back of my small brush, I can dip it into that white paint. So the back of my small brush, dip into the white paint. And I can make some snow. So just like a stamp, you can just kind of work on the outside area. The harder you push on the back of your small brush, the bigger the dots become. So just be sure you have a nice variety of smaller dots versus bigger dots in your sky. You can have like some on your tree too. Just be sure your tree is nice and done before you add any on top. Go back. Now that my hat is a little bit more dry, I am gonna add some maroon to my small brush, so that maroon color, and I'll give up here a maroon belt to my hat. So I'll just kind of go in here and add a maroon belt. Again, you might need 2 or 3 coats. Be sure that black paint's nice and dry. From one side to the next. Probably wait for mine to dry a little bit more and I'll go on top of it again. Once you're done, really wash and dry your small brush. You're gonna add a little bit of white to your small brush. Tap some off on your paper towel so you don't have too much on there. And you're just gonna add some sweeps of white inside the hat area. Be careful of the wet maroon paint, but I'm gonna start on this left corner a little bit off. Corner, I'll sweep. Just barely pushing on my brush. If you feel like you got too much on there, you can always let the white dry and add some more. And add some more black. All I'm doing is just kind of pushing down with my brush and flicking. So there's barely any white on my brush. So I flicked this way, and then I came in this way, and I flicked inwards. I'm gonna wash and dry that brush just in case it has any black on it. And then I'm gonna start working on my star a little bit more. The star looks really huge right now, which is fine because I'm gonna go in there with my small brush and my white paint. Give your yellow star a little bit longer to dry than I've given mine, so be sure it's not too shiny. But inside of it, I'm gonna come in and just gonna sweep some white here or there off of the edges. And then I'm just gonna bring your eye in more. Mine's blending in just a little bit too much, but adding a little bit of white coming in, that'll help make your star look just a little bit smaller. If you want, you can go back and touch anything up. Give things a second coat, a third coat. Remember, if you wanted to go into that sock space once the black was dry and add some white, you can. Always be aware of wet paints touching though if you're going back and touching anything up. Take your time. And thank you guys so much for joining us for our snowman painting class. And I hope you have a great holiday season. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a good day.